And obviously, it's great to have you with us. Hoping you are in good health. All of those who have just tuned in, it's just after 7 p.m. on a relatively cooler evening. We've had a bit more colder weekends last weekend, and the weekend prior to that was quite nippy and icy as well. But we make shukr. There are those who are less fortunate than us, so we should always remember those who are less fortunate than us. Open up our hearts. And also, let's not forget the work here of Salam Media and the humanitarian work that is done here and our humanitarian the Salam Foundation. And yeah, so coming up now is the Go Wild segment. We are talking to Alistair Leuner in a moment or so, and he's going to be tuning in with me and talking about the Safari Lodge. You know, the outdoor wildlife perspective of the COVID situation as well, and their virtual safari, which they've launched, something very new, something different, something I've never experienced. I've experienced, the outdoors differently. Many of you as well, the viewers, listeners of Salam Media have obviously been outdoors as well, differently. So yeah, we are welcoming on now Alistair Leuner, who is the general manager of Tintswalo Safari Lodge. Alistair, good evening and welcome to Salam Media.
Hi, ST. Thank you so much for having me on Salam Media.
It's great to have you with us, and thanks for taking the time. Now, I want to talk about, obviously, safaris and the Tintswalo Safari Lodge in a moment or so, and we'll talk a bit about, your virtual safari, etc. But firstly, I want to talk about Alistair Leuner and like how did you get involved with safari and the wildlife perspective of life and your love for the outdoors.
Well, ST, how it started, as a young boy, my dad lived in Namibia on a game farm, and he grew up like that, and he brought us up on that, in those game reserves. Spent a lot of time in the Kruger National Park, and always had a passion for that, and always wanted to be involved in nature and be a part of nature. And been in this industry for about 16 years, and been very lucky to be with the Tintswalo collection for the last 7 years.
Yeah. Now, looking at safaris and being involved in the business part of it, right? The passion for it starts with your love for the atmosphere and the environment. Animals, etc. Now, take us through your involvement here with Tintswalo Safari Lodge. When, like your experience within the wildlife and safari sector, how long have you been involved in this field before we talk about Tintswalo?
Yeah, I've been in this industry for about 16 years, and as I said, it's always been my passion. And I've been with Tintswalo for the last 7 years. Tintswalo is it borders the Kruger National Park with open borders.
Okay.
And it's 27,000 hectares. It's part of the Manyuleti Nature Reserve, and it's just an incredible piece of land within the Greater Kruger National Park.
Great stuff. Now, we want to talk a bit about the lockdown situation. There's been so many sectors of the economy and the country and businesses and whatever the case may be that have either had to have freeze periods, retrenchments, lockdown, etc. Fortunately, some of us were obviously fortunate enough to contribute towards it, and we are essential workers as well. So we've been fortunate enough to have traveled. However, how's the lockdown affected, the wildlife and the safari businesses and the safari sector of South Africa and yourselves?
Yeah, I think lockdown's been a massive difficulty. I mean, the last 4 months, there's been not a guest into the lodge. Nobody's allowed to travel. Our main clientele is overseas markets, and overseas markets don't travel. The local market can't travel. So it's been really, really, really tough the last 4 months with not a guest in camp, no income. The lodge is keeping all the staff on, because we're hoping it's going to open up soon, and we can get the tourism industry going again.
Now you talk about tourism industry, right? What's your view of the tourism industry now during the lockdown, right? And I want to talk a bit about what's the new normal, as they say we are going to be in that. We should embrace the new normal now. What is the new normal? Before we get into that, how do you see tourism prior to obviously the lockdown and post lockdown?
Well, obviously, prior to lockdown, South Africa is an amazing destination, and there was a huge amount of tourists coming to South Africa, and not only to places like the Kruger Park, but Cape Town and other beautiful places we have in the country, and business was booming, and obviously lockdowns come, and that's all shut down, and obviously it'll take a little bit of time to open up. But I think in the future, people will travel back to South Africa, and the tourism industry will grow again and prosper in South Africa.
Now, looking at the national lockdown, it's been challenging for many, in the nature and the nature reserve environments, as well as, conservation centers. When it comes to the protection of the wildlife, how's this now affecting this part of the industry, and how are many of the safari lodges, etc., coping? Have they managed to cope? And in terms of the tourism industry in South Africa as well, do you feel that our government has maybe assisted in a certain way towards that during the lockdown?
Obviously, with tours and stuff, the government has come to the party with that. But with regard to
because we mentioned earlier, if I may, borders being closed, and your business reliant mainly on a lot of local support, but a lot of international guests. Because we are so fortunate enough that we grew up among the big five, from primary school kids, you got to learn the big five. They were on even our banknotes. So my point being, so we as South Africans, we love it and we understand wildlife, and it's also, being a South African is obviously, knowing what wildlife is, whether you're a person who might not go out, but or rather for the outdoors. But regarding the support from the tourism industry, and the borders now being closed, and government coming to the party, supporting your industry and fellow safari lodges as well.
From our side, we've only really got help from the tours payment. And we're hoping we're going to get help, with opening of borders and allowing tourism to flow. That'll really help us. If that can open and borders can open and people can travel, we can get the local market in. If the international borders open, we can get international people in, and we can get people back to the lodge and people back in their jobs.
And looking at a quiet place is not a nice thing. It's hard for workers as well. It's hard for different, people of the different sectors in the economy. Now, looking at the future now of the lockdown and the new normal, where do you see virtual safaris as something that many others are going to be? Is it going to become a new thing? Is this going to be part of the new normal? What is your viewpoint of the new normal for the wildlife and safari industry?
Yeah, I think virtual safaris will be a major part of the new normal, but I don't think it can replace that actual feeling of being on an M-drive vehicle or being on foot in the African bush. And, as you said, seeing the big five. As a boy, you grew up to see the big five. And I think virtual safaris will only enhance tourism and push people to actually go to Africa and experience Africa and South Africa, truly, on the ground. But virtual safaris definitely will help with that and just market, South Africa as a brand. and get people to come.
Now, I've seen on various videos, yours as well as the TRT World channel, their virtual safaris videos have brought some sense of liveliness during the lockdown. In concluding, the support now from the local residents, and when the stage 2 and stage 1 lockdown eventually does fall into play, what do you think should be done? Are there some changes that you feel should be made, and some leniency for businesses like yours, etc., in this field?
Yeah, I think definitely, as I was saying, as long as we can get travel to move, and the government continue helping the lodges to keep going and keep the staff.
Yeah.
If we can get the guests in, we can make this industry work.
No, definitely. I mean, you do need the feet to walk in and out, and because borders for interprovincial borders mainly have been, they've rather had massive restrictions in this regard. It's been quite difficult. Now, I want to talk about the process of hosting, the virtual safari. How was the reception from the people? And obviously, being reliant on social media platforms, how do you think this has been received in your?
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.